Hello everybody and welcome to today's Clever Copywriting School Masterclass. And today I have the great pleasure of having Kylie Uffer, as I like to say, in the room. So Kylie, before I dig into the topic for today and talk about why I wanted you here, can you tell us a little bit about you, what you do, who you are, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a virtual assistant agency where our head office is in Queensland. However, we specialise in looking after small business owners, are our passion, and we look after them right throughout the country. Oh, you're muted, Kate.
I'm such a pro. Fantastic. That was such a quick intro that I didn't have time. I was trying to write something on the little thing in the Clever Copywriting School about you, and you were so quick. And so Kylie has done the Recipe for SEO Success course. She's also a member of Digital Master Chefs. And yeah, Kylie runs a VA network. So she is all around, she understands all the different requirements people have for VAs. She does a lot of helping people onboard VAs, because I think that all of us could do with a VA in our life. Let's be honest. You know, we all need a work wife. We could all do with someone taking some of the load off us. But I think the thing that challenges us about the idea is we think, well, what the hell would they do? And how can I afford to pay a VA to do something when, you know, maybe I'm not making the $1 million a month that I thought I'd be making by now? And I just want to really say, before Kylie goes into her presentation, is that getting a VA was the making of my business. I was doing okay on my own. You know, I managed to get to a reasonable salary level, but like most of you, I had very limited time to work. And it wasn't until I was brave enough to take a risk on a VA, and I started very slowly. Kylie's going to talk about how to get started today. I started with 1 hour a week. And now I have possibly, I think at some point, 45 hours a week of VA help. I've got 2 VAs in Australia, 1 in the Philippines. I have no qualms about hiring Filipino and overseas VAs. I like to support Australian people, but the VA I have in the Philippines, I'm supporting his entire family and his extended family, and I feel good about that too. So I don't take this whole only Australia thing too far, so I'm just going to put that out there. But I will stop waffling. I was just filling time a little bit to let a few more people in the room. I'm going to hand over to Kylie. Kylie will be running through her presentation. If you have questions, as always, do #question in the chat box, and I will either rudely interrupt Kylie when she's in mid-flow, or I will save them to the end. And Kylie, if you don't mind, occasionally I get so excited that I jump in and go, oh, I agree, and things like that. But generally I'll try and keep my gob shut, okay?
No, go for it.
Okay, all right, so we'll just see if you can share your screen. That's always the first technological challenge, and you can see your lovely slides. And also, you know, maybe what we could do while we're waiting for the slides to come up is you could just put into the chat box whether you have a VA, whether you've thought about whether you're nervous about a VA, whether you, I don't know, like where you are at with your VA-ness. And that might just help Kylie get started. So maybe you've got a VA already and you're working a few hours a week. You'd love to get one, but you're not sure what they do. You know, what's your challenge around having a VA? If you can pop that into a chat, into the chat box, I think that would really help Kylie kind of understand where we're up to. So a few little things, Kylie, I can see. Rosie says she's in the process of hiring a VA, waiting on candidates to interview. Lyndall has a VA, but is hoping to build up hours. Emma tried one for a few months, but wants to start with another one. Alison doesn't have one, but would love to have one eventually. Joko doesn't have one, wants one, doesn't know where to start. How do I know what to give over to them or not? Love that question. All right, Kylie, that's the pain points. Over to you to soothe them.
Excellent. Can you see my slides full screen?
They look fantastic, and we can see a little U next to them, so it's all beautiful.
All fantastic. Okay, jokey. All right. Well, firstly, thank you so much. Thank you to Kate for inviting me here today. And thank you to you guys too for taking time out of your busy schedules to come along and join this journey with me to discover the ultimate guide to hiring a virtual assistant. Or for those of you who already have a virtual assistant, how you can get more out of them in 2021. So, if you are anything like me, then when I get really busy, what I tend to do is I tend to pop my blinkers on. I tend to put my head down, my bum up, and I start to get cracking on my to-do list and my business ideas list, which generally both of them are overflowing. And what I find is I start burning my candle literally from both ends. And it seems that I'm not alone here. So what we quite often hear with small business owners is that the reason that they don't, or that they can't reach out to somebody for support is because they're simply too busy. It's too hard to explain what they do to someone else. And their business is unique and complicated. And look, we're all unique and complicated, and that's just part of being in business. However, I'm here to say that it doesn't have to be that way. And in all honesty, they are not really valid enough reasons to potentially run yourself and your business into the ground. So what I want to do is I just want to go over this next 40 to 45 minutes together. I want to show you step by step how getting support in your small business can help you to grow your business and also assist you with your lifestyle as well. So here's what I'm going to share with you today. So we're going to look at how do you know if you really need a virtual assistant in the first place. Then we're going to look at that tipping point between getting a virtual assistant and getting an employee on the team. Then we'll look at the easiest tasks to outsource. We'll look at where to find a great virtual assistant. We'll look at how much they're going to cost you. We'll figure out how to choose the right one for your business. We'll look at how to brief your virtual assistant so that they achieve those tasks how you want them achieved. Then I'm just going to have a quick chat to my tribe, my control freaks and my perfectionists that might be in the room. And we're going to have a quick chat about delegating if you are a control freak and a perfectionist.
I have to jump in there because the last 2 minutes and the trust one were my biggest challenge. You know, like no one can do my job better than me. And also I don't want someone to be inside all my bits and bobs and have my passwords. And what if they steal my IP? Not that I have much IP. So I'm so glad you're covering that off. Okay, I'll shut up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do cover that in trust. We definitely cover off sharing your stuff because that's really, really important. That is a big trust issue. And finally, we're going to wrap up with what to do when things go pear-shaped. So just going to move you guys over here for a second. Okay, so who am I to be talking on this topic in the first place? Well, the first thing you need to know is that I absolutely love small business. I love everything about it. I love small business. I love small business owners. I love the visions, the missions, the everything. And I guess it was just seriously in my genetics because my parents ran a variety of small businesses as I grew up. So I guess I was just destined to join in at some point in time. Now, one thing I noticed while we were owning and operating all of these small businesses is that I really wanted one place that I could go to. I wanted like a one-stop shop that I could go to for support. However, instead, what we had to do was we had to engage various suppliers for different things. So we had someone who looked after websites. We had someone that looks after social media. We had a bookkeeper and so on and so forth. However, what I wanted was just like a one-stop shop where I could just tell them this is all about our business and then they could just go off and do all the things for me. So seeing that that didn't actually exist back in 2015, I decided to create it myself. So hence Profitability Virtual Assistants was born. And since then, my team and I have managed to help hundreds of small business owners to achieve their goals and to scale, survive and thrive in their business. Which is why I care so deeply about showing you today exactly what a virtual assistant can do to transform your business and your lifestyle as well. So as you know, there's 365 days in a year to achieve all these amazing things that we would like done in our business. And time is the most limited resource that we all own. I know, Captain Cliche, right? I know that you guys already know that. Now, we've already talked about the major reasons that business owners tell us that they don't get help in their business. So again, that was they're too busy. It's too hard to explain to someone else what they do. Or they don't have time to train anyone in what to do and their business is unique and complicated. Now, let's just have a think about that for a second. So if that business decides to continue down that pathway, then I guess things could start to look a little bit gloomy for them. Now, typically what we see is that the business's productivity levels will get to a maximum point. You know, it'll max out somewhere. Then when the business productivity maxes out, that also typically means that the income will max out as well. In turn, sometimes we see that at the same time, a business owner's mental health and their energy levels might start to reach a lower point. And the relationships that they have with their loved ones, their family and their friends, can also start to get a bit wobbly. Now, on the flip side, if you get some extra help around your business, that could mean that you have time to achieve those critical tasks that are on your to-do list and on your business ideas list as well, because it's important to tick off those goals and those dreams. Now, it's also important that from a personal perspective, you can tick off your personal goals as well. Those ones that occur away from the house. Like learning to roller skate.
Love it. Thank you.
That's okay. Did you end up mastering the driveway? We need to know.
I've done the driveway once, but I'm going out to a netball court this afternoon to try that. So I shall come back scraped and bruised tomorrow.
Fantastic. All right, so as we know, as all of us know, Kate is hugely successful running both this business and a number of others as well. Now, the reason she is achieving all that by herself is because she's sitting in the command seat and she's smart enough to realize that she can lean on her team of virtual assistants. As she said before, many hours a week, she can lean on her team of virtual assistants when and if she needs it. So it's important to think that if you want a virtual assistant someday in the future, then perhaps engaging them sooner rather than later might be a good idea. So it's a little bit like learning to roller skate. So for example, when you first learn to roller skate, you might need some help and support just navigating the kitchen. And then as you grow and you get some more skills, then you might need some support navigating the driveway. And then you might need some help navigating the netball court. It's the same in business. As our businesses grow and mature, we have this habit of making processes and tasks more complicated over time as we learn new skills. So if you get someone in the beginning, then they can actually grow with you. I hope that makes sense. Now, the next benefit to reaching out is a really important one. So I kind of want to lean in here because we're going to talk about the B word in business. So that's burnout. Now, I'm going to say a bold statement, and that bold statement is if you get support in your business, it could potentially slow down your burnout rate. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that it will cure you from burnout altogether because I simply don't believe in that. But I can guarantee you that if you get the support that you need inside your business, then it should give you enough mental space to be able to take that time you need to rest. Because as small business owners, we feel so guilty when we take that time out to rest and have that little bit of self-care time, don't we? But it is so critical that we take that time to rest. So I want you to reach out to somebody, get that support so you can put yourself first. Okay, and finally, if you take the time to invest in training somebody else, then what happens is they learn that task and they will be able to complete that task for you forever. So then you can start moving your focus and your attention onto other tasks that are really important for your business. All right, so how do you know if you really need a virtual assistant in the first place? So here are 5 easy ways to tell that you need a virtual assistant right now. Number 5, if you have missed an important deadline. Now that important deadline could be perhaps with a client or perhaps it could even be with yourself. So you might have been a little bit slow in getting a quote out for someone perhaps, or maybe you're just slow at invoicing your clients. Or perhaps because we're all copywriters here, perhaps we're a little bit slow in uploading that blog onto that client's website. We didn't quite achieve that in the time frame that we needed to. Then there could be things that we miss that might be a little bit more sinister, but no judgment here, that's for sure. But perhaps you're a little bit late picking up your kids, or organising a present for a loved one, or not being able to attend a family event, or having to postpone a date with a girlfriend, something like that. You just had too much on your plate at the time and you just missed the deadline. Now, whatever the case may be, missing a deadline is the first sort of sign that you need some support. And another little sign is that you've actually thought about or you've talked to someone about how good it would be to clone yourself. Now, number 4, you have started to get some complaints in your business instead of compliments. Like, you are normally the type of person who gets compliments for your work, and then all of a sudden, maybe because of a few missed deadlines, you perhaps start to get a few little complaints creeping in. This is another sign that you're potentially spending too much time on tasks that could maybe be taken care of by someone else, or perhaps you're just not spending enough time on the things that matter most. So you could be perhaps rushing some tasks through because you're really busy. Maybe they're just getting a little bit lower down on your priority list. Or perhaps, you've just overlooked them altogether, just completely slipped off the radar. Either way, you deserve to shine, and some extra support can turn this around. Now, I'd also want to say that being a small business owner is one of the hardest careers on the planet. So if you've missed a few deadlines, or if you have had a complaint or two, please don't beat yourself up about it. You're just human, and it's okay to be like that. That's just part of being human. Number 3, okay, it is simply a matter of doing a bit of an audit on the tasks that you have on your to-do list or on your business ideas list, and discovering whether they fit into your genius zone or the fun zone, or which tasks fall outside of that. And if the task falls outside of that, then definitely consider outsourcing that task. So if you're not a whiz at graphic design or creating your own website, then don't do it. Find someone else that can do it for you, that you can afford, and use their expertise instead. So the chances are pretty high that they will do a better job than you. They will probably do it in a faster time frame, and the result could potentially earn you more money in the long run as well. So please don't feel like you guys have to do it all, because you don't. Your business deserves the best of you, and just outsource the rest. All right, the number 2 reason to know if you really need a virtual assistant right now is if you could do the work with your eyes closed. So this could mean that the task is well below your pay grade. And let's face it, we're small business owners and we wear many, many hats in our businesses. So there'll be lots of these things on our list. Or the task is important, but there's more important tasks on your list, and that important task could potentially be done by someone else. And you'll instinctively know what these tasks are as well. These could be things like answering the telephone. It could be dealing with customer service inquiries. It could be, creating your social media posts or setting up appointments. These are things that can be managed by another person. So even if, like, say, sales calls or coaching calls are really critical to you and your business, you can still have a virtual assistant or a VR, a virtual receptionist, answer your customer inquiries and take those appointments and schedule them into your calendar at a time that suits you best. So definitely consider that. Now, outsourcing doesn't just relate to business too. So for example, we've got a friend of ours, he owns a flooring business, and he chooses to work every Saturday so he can pay for someone to mow his lawn and clean his house. Now, the reason he does that is because he can go out, he can earn, 4 times what he has to pay someone to mow his lawn and clean his house. He doesn't enjoy those tasks, but he actually doesn't mind what he does for work, and he can make money while doing it. So you can outsource the personal things as well. Okay, now the number 1 way to tell you need a virtual assistant right now, can anyone guess what it is? If you can, chuck it in the chat. Give you a sec to chuck that number 1 tip in the chat.
I love just some of the comments that there already. Joko says, you are describing my life right now. Way too much on my plate. Ditto. So the one way to tell if you need a virtual assistant. So we're supposed to tell you our number 1 thing now, yeah?
Yeah. Can you guess the number one way to tell if you need a virtual assistant right now? This is really important, and it's really
You're swearing at your computer. Your list of stuff to do doesn't have enough hours in the day. That's what Alison said. You're spending more than 15 to 20% of your week on admin.
Yeah.
Copious amounts of drinking. You start things but never finish them. These are the suggestions so far. Well, come on, put us out of our misery.
Okie dokie. It is that you have looked for information on Google about burnout. Now, if you've looked for information on Google about burnout, then you need a virtual assistant ASAP. So unless you're writing a medical article about this particular topic, if you've Googled it, you've got it. Thanks, Jack. So if this is you, I want you to know that I'm here for you. My team are here for you. And if we're not a good fit for you or you're not comfortable reaching out to us, that's completely okay. But please reach out to someone else, because there will be someone out there who is there for you. And I want you to know, like, please do not keep pushing yourself any further and take some time to rest. So there's this old Zen saying, and it says, you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day, unless of course you're too busy for that, and then you should sit for an hour. And I think when it comes to burnout and feeling exhausted, that it's exactly the same thing. Okay, so what is the tipping point between having a virtual assistant and potentially putting an employee on our team instead? So number one benefit of having a virtual assistant is you do not pay them when they're not working for you. So of course there is a situation where you could be paying them a retainer. However, if you're starting out, it's not something that I really recommend unless you've been working with your virtual assistant for a while and you're really clear on what their role is inside your business. Next tipping point is to understand what your obligations are under the Fair Work requirements. So most modern day awards state that you must pay a casual person for 2 to 3 hours per engagement, regardless of how long you actually need them for the day. So what that means, for example, if you were getting someone to give you a hand with writing some copywriting, for example, they were coming in and helping you with copywriting tasks. If you employed them, you'd need to make sure that you had at least 3 hours worth of work for them each engagement, because that's what the award states that you need to pay them. However, with a virtual assistant, you can simply just pay them for the time that it takes to achieve that. The other thing is with casuals, you need to also be mindful that you need to pay them a 25% casual loading, and you also need to pay their super as well. So just keep that in mind.
There's so much. I mean, like I tried getting employees. I mean, I use VAs and subcontractors. Seriously, employing a member of staff is a pain in the ass, you know, compared to having a virtual assistant or a subcontractor of any kind. Because, I mean, maybe you're going to talk about this, but it's not just this, is it? You've got to kind of motivate people, set their KPIs, do reviews, keep them on track. There's loads of stuff. Who wants to have to motivate people? Seriously.
I know, especially when you're a small business owner. Sometimes it's really hard to motivate yourself, let alone a team.
Set KPIs. I don't know. Question for Joanna. She didn't use the hashtag, but I'll let her off because she's got a nice background. How do you make sure you don't accidentally engage a VA as in an employee relationship versus a genuine subcontract service provider relationship?
Okay, great question, and something actually I don't cover in here. So with that, when you talk to them, and we will talk about, you know, the questions you need to ask when you get started, make sure at that point in time that they should have, if they're a professional virtual assistant, they'll actually have like an engagement agreement or a terms and conditions type agreement where you'll be able to be, you know, reassured that they're actually coming on as a contractor as opposed to an employee. The other point to tell is if you don't fill out the official ATO paperwork or Fair Work paperwork in regards to that, you know they're not an employee of yours anyway, as well. So I hope that answers your question, Joe. Feel free to let me know if you need any more info with that. Okie dokie. So here is a simple equation to figure out if you can afford a virtual assistant or not. And it is as simple as looking at your hourly rate your hourly rate multiplied by the time it would take you to do the job, less our hourly rate or your virtual assistant's hourly rate multiplied by the time it would take us to do the job. And then once you do that simple equation, you're going to come out with either a profit, a break even, or a loss. So if it's a profit, great, go ahead, utilize that virtual assistant, you're going to make money out of them. If it's break even, it could still be okay. It really just depends on the task, or maybe you need to go and find a cheaper VA. And it could turn out that you make a loss. Now, that doesn't sound very good, does it? But again, it depends on the task. And the reason I say it depends on the task is because there are some exceptions to this. So for example, my accountant has a much higher hourly rate than I do. However, does that mean that I should go out and learn how to submit my annual tax every year? Oh, hell no. He's gone to uni for years to learn how to do that. And he nails it the first time, every time, and takes that stress off my shoulders. So I'm more than happy to outsource that to him and pay him a higher hourly rate than mine to achieve that task. Now, also for all of you that sell products instead of services, and a lot of these people don't think that they've actually got an hourly rate. However, that's simply not true. Each one of us has an hourly rate, and if you're unsure, you can either go to Fair Work and have a look at the award for your industry, or because we're all copywriters here, head on over to Kate's Clever Copywriting School and download her recommended rates for copywriters guide, which I'm sure you've already done, but use that in your equation here to determine whether you're going to make money out of them, break even, or potentially lose money as well. Okay, so here is a list of areas of your business that are the easiest to outsource to somebody. So admin tasks. So this could be answering emails, answering phone calls, answering customer inquiries. Then we have bookkeeping. So that could be your daily bookkeeping, your BAS, or reconciling your accounts. We also have data entry. So that could be collecting all those little data points inside your business that you need to keep your finger on the pulse with. Or it could be, entering contact details from this spreadsheet to that email program or whatever it might be. Then we have marketing. So marketing, that could be creating brochures, creating flyers, or automating an email nurture sequence or something like that for you. Then we have phone calls. We can actually take phone calls on behalf of businesses, and we can do it without clients being aware that we're actually a third-party provider as well. So that resource does exist. Then we have research. So that could be research on topics that you need research on, or it could be research on behalf of your clients as well. Then we have social media. So that could be creating social media posts for your business. It could be creating social media posts for your clients' businesses. It could be putting together your social media calendar for the year. But one thing I will say with social media is I just think as a small business owner, social media is such a time suck for small business owners, because these apps were literally designed to distract us as soon as we get there. So you go there, you're going to create this post, it should take 10 minutes, and half an hour later you're still scrolling through your news feed. So it is a really good one to get some time back in your court, is to outsource your social media. And we've got websites. So that is having a website in the first place. And then, of course, keeping your website up to date with your products and services. And as Kate teaches us, we also need to have our SEO strong on our website and be consistently blogging on there and looking after our website maintenance, etc. So all of these could be outsourced to a virtual assistant. Now, if this list that I've given you now is not exhaustive, so if you want some more suggestions, head on over to our website, download the guide, and there'll be more suggestions there for you. Okay, so let's have a quick chat about what not to outsource. So you can never outsource your company culture. So that means, the way you like things to be done inside your business. It's kind of like your business's personality. You can't outsource that to anyone. It also, I personally believe, onboarding new team members, including your virtual assistant, and, getting rid of them as well. I think that's something that needs to be done by the business owner. Now, in business, we talk about our bread and butter, earning the money that, doing the things that makes us earn money. Now, you can get a plethora of support in regards to earning your bread and butter, but you always want to consider yourself like the knife. You're like the knife that brings these two elements together. And if there's some really critical stuff that knife does, then perhaps, like IP, for example, perhaps you don't want to outsource that to somebody, because it's a high risk if that gets out in the community. The other two things that you can't outsource is the vision for your business. Now, you can most definitely go and get the opinion and the feedback from others in regards to, what direction your business should take into the future. However, ultimately that decision lies with you. So you definitely can't outsource your vision. And my final one is quality assurance. So especially when you're starting out with a new virtual assistant, you're going to want to double check the work that they're doing. And you need to make sure that the work that they're doing actually meets the brief that you've given them. And we'll talk a bit more later about the brief for your virtual assistants as well. Now, as your business gets bigger, you can definitely have somebody else on your team look after that quality assurance for you, but I still recommend then you become like the quality assurer or the quality assurer, if that makes sense. Okay, so where can we find these awesome virtual assistants? Well, look no further. Profitability Virtual Assistants. We offer a full suite of small business support. So please feel free to Google us and or reach out to me at any time if you'd like to talk about what we do. Now, if we're not a good fit for you, perhaps you could do a Google search to search for a virtual assistant. Now, it's a little bit like your industry. So if people were to search your industry, it doesn't necessarily mean that the best candidates float to the top of the list, such as yourself. So just keep that in mind, that when you Google virtual assistants, a lot of the big global companies will start to float to the top of the list. And with these global companies, you may just not receive the personal care and attention that your business deserves. The other pain point that we had with the big boys back in the day was that you can very rarely find a good virtual assistant that you can communicate with. And if by chance you do find them, you do find that unicorn in the patch, then there's also no guarantees about how long they're going to be available to you for, and whether they can prioritize your work above somebody else who may be potentially paying them more money. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but just for me, it was a lot harder sort of route to go through. And for many small business owners, we really need that reliability and that consistency. So we really want to search for that when we're looking for a virtual assistant. Now, personally, I think that word of mouth is the best way to find a reliable and consistent virtual assistant. So if somebody else has used their services and had a really good experience, then that speaks volumes to me. And apparently it speaks volumes to a lot of other people too. So 92% of our population believe that a word of mouth recommendation from a trusted source actually is a major influence as to whether they will purchase that product or service, which completely makes sense. So definitely think of those word of mouth recommendations that you hear. Now, the only caveat that I would put on this, in particular for our industry, is that there's many solo virtual assistants out there, and time is a limited resource for them too. So in a minute, we're going to go through some questions that you can ask them just to make sure that your business hits that priority list. Okie doke. So when it comes to the cost of a virtual assistant, there are 3 costs that need to be considered when you're evaluating your VA. The first one is the personal cost. So this is the consideration of your time, as well as the amount of time that you're going to need to invest to train them and to do that quality assurance that we spoke about before. And that's versus the toll of not getting that support could have on your health, wellness, and lifestyle too. So personal cost is a big one. Next one, financial cost. Goes without saying. With the financial cost, just remember that equation that we went through before. Most VAs in Australia range between $35 an hour and $50 an hour. And I'm going to give you a little insider tip here. If you have a really strong brief on the project that you want to do, you can actually go to your virtual assistant and ask them to quote on the entire project. Now, if you do that, you could bag yourself a little bargain. Now, the reason for that is because as humans, we naturally underestimate how long tasks take. And virtual assistants are no different. We gyp ourselves of time all the time. So if you ask for a quote on the entire project, you could actually be getting that done for a lower cost than it would be if you did it per hourly rate. Not that there's anything wrong with a per hourly rate, but just a little insider tip between you and me. Like, don't tell them I told you that. And then finally, we have the popular debate over whether to use an Australian virtual assistant versus an overseas virtual assistant for a fraction of the cost. Because the reality is you can go overseas and get virtual assistants for as low as $5 an hour. Now, far be it for me to judge whether, that's the right thing to do or not. You know your business the best and you know your moral compass the best. So do what suits you and what suits your budget as well. One thing that people do say to us when they have used a virtual assistant from overseas, they typically say there's three main problems to be aware of. So they are the communication barrier, which is understandable, and the time zone difference. The next one is that potentially if they haven't found the right virtual assistant, it can take them the same amount of time to fix the project as it would to have completed it themselves in the first place. And the last one is that potentially the overseas VA might take, so long to complete the project that it would be the same cost as an Aussie VA as well. So they're just some points to think about. I don't mind either way, and certainly no judgment, like I said.
Can I jump in there a little bit? There's a few things I'd love to mention there.
Okay.
Shauna brought up an interesting point, which is very true, that if you're going to use a bookkeeper, you're going to get a bookkeeper within your business, that they need to be qualified and accredited. So you're better off getting an Australian one. Is that right, Kylie?
Yes, absolutely. So you want them to be a registered BAS agent with the Tax Practitioners Board.
Yeah, so that's not going to work. I'll be honest, I have tried overseas VAs, I've tried Australian ones. I think your points are really, really valid if you don't mind just going back a slide. The language barrier is one thing, but it's not just language barrier, it's also, it's just a mannerism barrier. The way that other cultures respond to you. Like I thought I had a VA that would always call me mom, and that was superly over formal all the time, which I just found after like 2 months was just actually awful. I couldn't actually have a chat. They didn't get my jokes. That was really hard. They didn't get my idioms and my slang, my cultural nuances. It's quite tricky. Also, internet is often an issue in other countries. So Glenn, who is amazing, often just doesn't have internet for a couple of days just because there's been a monsoon or something like that. I find as well that, overseas VAs, in my experience, are very much reluctant to take the initiative. So they're much less likely to come to you and say, hey, look, I know you told me that we do this like this, step A, step B, step C, but have you ever thought about doing C first? Because I think it would make much more sense. They're very deferential and they'll do exactly what you tell them to do, but they won't think beyond the box. Now, this is a sweeping generalization. I'm just giving you my truisms. I think they have a place, so what happens with us is that Leanne and Maddie feed tasks to Glenn, and Glenn's been around for 1.5 years now. It took a long time for him to get to the level where we were cool. The other thing I would say is that yes, you can pay a very low rate, but it doesn't really serve you to do that. So I ended up, like Glenn quoted his rate, and I ended up tripling his rate because I wanted him to be loyal and to really enjoy the thing. So it cost me nearly as much as an Australian one now. But yeah, I think there is a moral thing there, to be honest, as well. I hate it when people go, yeah, I got this VA and I'm only paying them $5 an hour. It's like, that's disgusting. Look at what you're making. I have judgment. I have judgment, people. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. And that's a really cool point, because I know it was funny. I got an email from Pacific National, and if you don't know who Pacific National is, they're a rail company that goes throughout Australia and they deliver coal to different points. And we happen to have worked for them at some point in time, and they sent an email out. It just would have been a blanket email that went out to everybody. But the email was talking about modern slavery. And I'm like, modern slavery? What the hell is modern slavery? And so, of course, I Googled it all. And basically that's what it was talking about, is it talking about, people in some countries utilizing people in other countries. And it is a form of modern slavery. And this particular business was saying, you will not be a supplier of ours if you do these types of tactics. So,
yeah, I agree with that, and I think we're talking a lot about this in the community this year, about your values and who you want to be as a business owner and how you want to be seen. I know some pretty good VA entrepreneurs who are out there pretending they're all doing the good thing, and then behind the scenes they got $5 Filipino VAs, and it's kind of like, you know, it's a bit ick. So I see nothing wrong with using overseas people as long as you treat them well, pay them decently, probably more than they asked, and you know, integrate them into your team. And I think you can support both industries that way, and it can be great. Anyway, I think it's worth talking about that. We shouldn't shy away from talking about difficult, uncomfortable issues. And a bargain is not always a bargain, and a bargain might feel good for the wallet, but not good for the soul, eh? Okay, Kylie, I'll let you crack on.
I absolutely agree. Thank you, Kate. Alrighty, so now let's look at choosing your VA and the 4 questions that you're going to want to ask them when you start out. So my first tip is to speak with them if you can. So speak with your potential VA and make sure that your personalities are a good fit for each other to start with. And then once you've figured that out, you can ask them the first question. And the first question is, can you please tell me about a few other projects that you've done like mine, that you've done before? And what a good VA will do is they'll just be able to rattle off the details of projects that they've done in the past that are similar to yours, and they'll do it without breaching any privacy or sharing any trade secrets. Now that's important because the way that they share privacy information about other clients is the way they're going to share your privacy information with other clients as well. So you want to make sure that they don't breach any kind of privacy when you ask them that question. Now, a good virtual assistant will also tell you if they haven't done that project before. And what they'll do instead is they'll say, no, haven't done the project before. However, this is how I would tackle it. You know, this is the approach that I would take to achieve that particular goal for you. And, you know, based off their answers, you can decide whether that fills you with confidence and you move ahead, or perhaps you go and find someone else who can do the project for you. The next question you're going to want to ask them is, how much will it be? Kind of goes without saying, really. But remember what we talked about earlier. The better your brief is, the easier it will be for them to give you a quote versus an hourly rate. And again, not that there's anything wrong with hourly rates, but also the better your brief, the quicker your VA will be able to get on the same page as you as well in terms of your goals and your timeframes. Now, this is an important one. We touched on this earlier when we talked about like that word of mouth recommendations. So many virtual assistant operators in Australia are one-man bands or one-woman bands, and like everybody else, the hours in their day are numbered. So there is a particular point where they will have a maximum capacity. So unless they have a team of VAs with them, like we do here at Profitability, there's going to be a maximum capacity that they can take on. So it's really important to ask them and to have confidence that they can take you on as well. So you need to be reassured that they can fit you into their schedule and that they can give your project the priorities that it deserves as well.
I think a really important point to add there as well is to make sure that they are not then outsourcing your work to another VA. Yes. And if you're, you know, if they are, they should be upfront and transparent about that. You know, you don't want to spend ages chatting to some amazing VA who sounds amazing and brilliant, and then you realize that they're actually never doing any of your stuff. It's someone else, you know. So that's another thing to check. Do you outsource work?
Yes, great question. And final question is, don't be afraid to ask your VA for references. Now, I don't necessarily mean like a physical list of, you know, business references and personal references like you'd expect to see in a resume, but by all means ask them, you know, have you got some names and numbers of people that I can contact, just to ask them how they felt about your services. So for us, for example, when you sign up to be a client of ours, part of our terms and conditions also state that you will automatically be happy to be a referee for us. You can opt out of it, of course, but you become a referee of ours if someone was to ever contact you and ask you how you felt about our services. Now, the reason we do this is because it sort of has, I like this level of transparency for 2 reasons. So it allows you to actually go and contact any of the customers that we've ever talked about that we've worked with. You can just contact any of them at random and ask them what they felt about our services. But from our perspective too, it also keeps our team on their toes, because every person that crosses our path needs to receive that top class service, because we simply don't know who you're going to ring. So definitely ask them for references, and don't be afraid to ring those references and ask the questions about, you know, how that person felt with this particular VA. Okay, so let's talk about how to brief your virtual assistant so that your project runs smoothly and to your liking. All right, so it goes without saying we need to tell them what the project details are. However, what a lot of people forget to tell a virtual assistant is why is it important? You know, what's the end goal here? So for example, when we do website design, one of the first questions we'll ask you is like, what's the purpose of your website? Is it to share information about what you do? Is it to showcase your work? Is it to capture leads? Or is it to sell your products and services? Now, the way you answer that means that we're going to tackle your project slightly different. We're going to do your design slightly different as well. So it is important to talk about the end goal for projects as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. The next thing you're going to want to tell them is your timeframes. So, you know, how long you expect this project to take. Now, that could be a particular date, or if it's like it's a daily task, you might want to tell them that I want this done by a particular time of the day. So, you know, for example, could you please clear my inbox by 9:30 every morning? And that's perfectly okay to ask. And if it's a bigger project, you might also want to consider saying to them, you know, as you start this project, when you get to this point, can you please let me know? And that way you keep your finger on the pulse as to that project's progress. Next, we have the quirky bits. So the piece de resistance, oh, you'll say that better than I will, Kate. So the quirky bits that go with your project, so that make your project look seamless no matter who completes that for you. So for example, if you wanted a logo created, tell them your favorite colors. If you want them to answer your telephone, tell them what tone you want them to answer the telephone in. Tell them what script you want them to say if that's appropriate. And like going back to Kate again, thinking of Kate, Kate has a really unique writing style. So if Kate was to engage us to do her email copy, it would be super challenging if we didn't know that she had such a playful style. So it'd be really, really helpful for us to know, yep, she has a really playful style. And it'd also be really helpful to know, where does this email copy sit in her sales funnel as well? Because then, of course, when we're doing the job, we're able to, you know, insert all the upsells, downsells, side sells, all that kind of stuff, because we understand the bigger vision that she has for that particular project.
Again, sorry to interrupt, so I want to jump in there really quickly. I think this explaining the big picture stuff is so important. Too often we just give VAs and people who are working with us just little chunks, and they don't, it's hard to take ownership of something and really care about it unless you see where it fits into the bigger picture. Yeah. The other thing I would really recommend for most of the people here, getting a VA, hiring a VA to write your copy is probably unlikely going to work unless there's someone like Shauna who's a copywriter stroke VA stroke whatever. Most times I don't use VAs to do any copy stuff. I use them to do everything but the copy. You know, so I generate the copy. They can proofread it. They can even edit it. They can code it. They can put it in an email. They can make it into graphics. But the copy comes from me. And it's because of that style thing. Even if I do the best tone of voice guideline in the world, it's still very hard to put your finger on. And it's going out there as you. So you are a copywriter. I think it's fine if you're an accountant getting a VA to do your copy. But as a copywriter, it's like, that's the one thing you're supposed to be good at. So don't give it to anybody else. Yeah. That's just my opinion.
I absolutely agree with you. So whatever your bread and butter is, you know, whatever your talent is inside your business, stick with it. Do that and outsource the rest. We have another client of ours who is a social worker, and she actually represents kids in some pretty nasty cases. However, when we were talking to her, we found out one of her quirky bits was that she really loves penguins. And we're like, okay, what is it about penguins? And apparently penguins are fantastic parents. And I'm like, wow, that is a really cool backstory when you consider like the job that she was doing and that she loved penguins. So when we create her website, it's definitely going to have this penguinesque style to it because, you know, it suits her personality, it suits her role, and penguins are great parents. So yeah, I thought it was a really cool backstory to share. So I'm glad she shared those quirky bits with us. So think about what's unique and quirky about you and your business and share that information with your VA. Okay, next I want to have a quick word with my tribe. So if you are a control freak or a perfectionist, please step forward. If you do not identify as a control freak or a perfectionist, that is totally okay. I will be back with you in a jiffy. So, alrighty, tribe. As a fellow control freak and perfectionist, I truly believe that these two qualities are like on the job description of being a small business owner and an entrepreneur. I believe like if you want to be successful, these are two qualities that you kind of do need in your toolbox. However, one of the tasks that we really suck at is delegating. So the thought of like handing over our precious business baby to someone else to, you know, tender and care for is something that really is uncomfortable for us, and we find it really, really super challenging. But what I suggest is that you ask yourself these questions. So did you go into business to give yourself a job, or did you go into business to help others? Because the answer to these is very different. So if you went into business to give yourself a job, then for sure, reach out to a virtual assistant and get a hand when you need it, just like you would if you were employed by somebody else and you needed a hand with something. So absolutely use it there. However, if your mission and your passion is to help others with the products and services that you have in your business, then you need to do yourself a favor and to learn to start delegating. Now, it's uncomfortable, it's not easy, but it is doable and it does get easier. So my recommendation is just to start with the really simple tasks, you know, the ones that don't take too much skill or knowledge. Start with those, and then as you build that relationship and as you build that trust, you can give them some more complex tasks. The other thing too is, because you're a perfectionist, why not give them that awesome procedure you wrote, because it'll be perfect, and just let them follow that procedure as well. So that's another little tip for you. And like I said, it does get easier over time and you will get better and better at it. Okay, so trust. We're nearly done, team. I just want to talk about two more topics. I want to talk about building trust, and I want to talk about what to do when things go pear-shaped. Both of them will be quite quick. And the reason that this is quite quick is because building trust with your virtual assistant is the same as building trust with anyone else in your life. You know, you need to communicate clearly, honestly, and often. You need to make sure that they understand what your expectations are. And if your expectations aren't met or things are kind of going off the path, you simply need to communicate with them and just ask them, hey, what's going on? And hopefully that communication will be enough to bring that project back on track. Now, the next part of building trust is sharing those log-on details with your virtual assistant. So many projects that you might ask them to do will require them to have access to your systems. So this could include access to your website, to your emails, to your bookkeeping software, social media profiles, all those types of things. And giving somebody else those types of details, of course, always comes with an apparent risk. So in order to mitigate that risk as much as possible, one of the better things that you can do is actually create a profile on your system for that person. So if you can create an email address for that person, do that, sign up to all the things that you need them to have access to with that email address, and then allow them to use that instead of using your own logon details to access those things. Now, there are a number of ways that you can achieve this. And again, in our ultimate guide to hiring a VA, there's some hints and tips in there for you as well if you need to know how to do that. All right, last but not least, what to do when things go pear-shaped. So first thing not to do is jump off a cliff. But you know the saying, like jump off a cliff and build the parachute on the way down? It's kind of like an entrepreneurial mantra that we learn when we come into business. Well, there is a chance that your virtual assistant may use this mantra too. So they may have perhaps said yes to a project that they may not have had the full skill set for. Now, hopefully those 4 questions that we asked them earlier will kind of flush that out. But if it hasn't, then you know, they may be taking on a task that they're not quite qualified to do. And with some of these guys, you know, it's not nice when it's your project that they're building the parachute with. So the first thing to do when things go pear-shaped is, again, communication is key. Talk to your virtual assistant, find out what went wrong. And, you know, if you're frustrated, if you're really frustrated, calm yourself down first, because you're going to want to talk to them in the way that you'd want to be spoken to if you were in their shoes. So communication is key there. But if things have gone really bum crack pear-shaped, and you've tried all the niceties and it hasn't quite worked, then it might be time to actually remove their access to your system. Now, you want to do this as quickly as you can and with a bit of a minimum of fuss. So you may even want to do this before you let them know that it's occurred. And this isn't anything that's malicious towards them or anything like that. It is purely just protecting you and your business from, any ill feelings or any harm or damage that they might be able to do. And then finally, when things do go super duper pear-shaped, I want you to not give up. I want you to get back out there. I want you to find another virtual assistant who is a better fit for your business. And especially now that you've got all these awesome steps on how to hire a virtual assistant, hopefully things won't go so pear-shaped next time. Alrighty, so I hope our time together has given you a little bit of confidence in regards to getting some extra support in your business. Or if you already have a virtual assistant, hopefully this will improve your relationship with them. If you know somebody who could benefit from any of this information, please feel free to let them know that it's out there and they can download this from our website. Yeah, thanks again for today. And if you've got any questions, happy to ask them.
Fantastic. Yeah, do you mind after this presentation, could you send me a link to where we can grab that downloadable, and I'll share it in the community as well. If you just want to stop sharing your screen for a minute, we'll just go through a few little questions and extra points that people have made. So, Shauna mentioned, not really asking for a resume because they're independent business owners. I think some people make that mistake. If you're a copywriter about to be hired, you wouldn't expect someone to ask for you. It's a lot of what Carly was talking about applies to us, charging by the hour, charging a fixed rate, all that kind of stuff. Shauna says it's also very important that they ask you these personality traits before you start the task. Yeah. So look, from my experience, I think the biggest point to make is that you really, what Kylie said towards the end, which is, you fall off the cliff and make the parachute as you go sort of thing. You have to give it a pop. And really, what's going to be the worst that can happen if you get a VA for 1 or 2 hours a week? Now, I think you touched on this, but I just want to emphasize it, that a really good VA, like you might go to a VA and say, look, I want you to help me with this, this, and this. But the more you let the VA see your business, the more ideas they will have about ways they can help. And I know that sounds almost bad, like the VA is kind of like trying to find jobs to do to make you money, but that's still always your decision. You still look at your budget and go, can I afford this? But once you've got a VA in and they're maybe just doing a bit of Canva for you, and then they're like, I could do your emails, I could code your blog posts, I could send your invoices, I could do your bookkeeping, I could update your social, I could set up a calendar for you, I could integrate Stripe and PayPal on your website and fix your footer. And you're like, oh my God. And the main thing is that hopefully you are charging a substantially more than a VA. But I think for some of you who've been in business for a little while now, 2-3 years, I'm not somebody that talks about up leveling or reaching the next level, because I think that's nonsense. But if you do want to do more in your business, or you want to, have a slightly different kind of business where you're not just in the trenches grubbing away day by day, this is the risk you're going to have to take. You're going to have to kiss a few frogs, try someone out for a few months, maybe try it for 3 months, 6 months. It took me 2 years to really train poor Leanne how I wanted to be, and for her to train me as a boss as well, for me to behave the way I need to behave. And it took a good 2.5 years for me to trust her, to let go. And now I'm at the point in my business where if I'm not there for the day, I am 100% confident that Leanne could code, even for the week, even for a couple of weeks. She could pretty much run my business. Don't tell her I said that. And that took some time and a lot of trust, but it's a wonderful place to be, and it just gives you the opportunity to do things you never thought you could do, like, going speaking at events, or going after clients that you wouldn't have been brave enough to go for before, or taking on more work and subcontracting and all that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm a bit of an evangelical about it, Kylie. Are there any final points that you'd like to make before we finish? I think you did a fantastic job. I hope you guys just have the confidence to actually reach out and get that support, because it is so important when you're in business to go and have that team around you so you can achieve that wonderful stuff that you've got on your list. So if someone contacts you, you do that. You're pretty much like the, you know, the crew of The Bachelor. You'll match them up. You know, Emma likes peanut butter. This BA likes peanut butter. Emma can work with that BA. So you're a bit of a matchmaker in that respect, yeah?
Yep, absolutely. And it boils down to what tasks the business owner needs. So we'll match them with the person who's got the most talent in that area to ensure that they get the best job.
And I will also say that obviously for that, there's some degree of these people work for Kylie. She takes a small commission. If you go on to Upwork and you try and find these people yourself, good luck with that. Good luck, because a lot of people say they can do things and they can't. They say they have skills and software abilities that they don't have, but you don't find that out until like 3 weeks in, when it's taking them 6 hours to code a WordPress blog. And you're like, but you said you could do WordPress. And they're like, I've logged into WordPress. And it's like, that's not what you said. Whereas at least with Kylie, if that happens, it's Kylie's fault. And you get to shout at her on the telephone. No, I'm joking. So I will include a link to Kylie's downloadable and a way to contact Kylie. Maybe she could be somebody that can help hook you up with your first VA. But I just want to say thank you very much, Kylie. Can we all give her a round of applause? Just want to take a little screen grab for posterity. Most of you got your cameras off. We'll do it again. Let's all look excited. There we go. Thank you so much, Kylie. If you're watching this on playback in the membership, look below the video. There is a link to Kylie's downloadable there that you can find. So thank you so much, Kylie. I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind hanging on for one